Welcome to the Wolverine Digest podcast, the best spot for objective and authentic coverage of Michigan athletics. If you want open dialogue, honest opinions, and in-depth coverage of the maize and blue, this is the podcast for you. And now, here's your host, Brandon Brown, joined as always by Chris Bradler.
I just want to start by saying go blue.
And I'll fade it out right there. I believe we have the correct microphone on now for Chris. And boy, let me tell you, I was just saying this to Chris before we launched live. I mean, it's only episode 200, right?
Yeah.
We don't know what's going on. We don't know how to do that. Dude, just it's always something. It's always something. Tonight it was a Facebook connection issue with StreamYard, and didn't realize that was. You can't tell that's even an issue until you go to create the feed. Yeah. So anyway, happy.
We're not the most technical
episode.
people. Yeah. Not the most technical people out there. But you're right, Brandon. It's episode 200, and somehow we've made it this far.
It's actually probably episode, like, if I had to guess, like 211, maybe 209, because there's everyone's
counting the first.
No, it's not that. It's just sometimes I don't actually upload the episode to the podcast place. It just, once in a while, it's like we're busy with other stuff, or there's travel, or there's this, or there's that, or whatever. But
at some point, this might have been a good show to do it. But at some point, we should go back into the archives and pull video from like the first 2 or 3 times. I don't even think we were live when we were doing it. We were pre-recording it. Just an awful. We had many conversations about how bad it was, what we were doing, and how much we needed to improve it. I think it would be fun to go and pull it out, show it to you, so you can see that old video. Because for whatever you think about the show now, I promise you, it was significantly worse when we first started.
I'm sure it was worse, but I don't know.
We were more like news anchors. It was like Dan Rather, like, well, here's what I think about Michigan recruiting. You have a kid over here who's doing that. Just, I don't know. There was no personality. We weren't drunk. Like, you weren't wearing necklaces. None of that stuff was happening.
That's only been a couple times, but no, here we are. Episode 200, and I see some people in the comments already mentioning it. I know some people reached out to me on Twitter. My dad texted me, a couple friends. They're like, "What happened? Where's the 3 shows a week?" Well, last week was a pretty big week for Chris and his family. Chris's little guy had a birthday, and you were supposed to go see the goat, right? I mean, one of the goats.
We haven't been on it. We haven't been on in a couple days here, so I just feel like I gotta say some things here about this game. Right. So, took my son to Chicago. He's a big soccer fan. Wanted to go see Inter Miami play the Chicago Fire, and of course, the appeal to go to see Inter Miami is Lionel Messi is going to be, the greatest soccer player in the world, the equivalent of going to see Michael Jordan or Kobe Bryant. Any of these superstar athletes, do what they do best. And of course, he just happens to be injured during the game, which sucked because we bought the tickets back in July. This was going to be a big thing. My son was super excited. And how often do you get a chance to see Messi play soccer in person? It felt like a rare opportunity. So that was one thing, but he sucks it up. He's a big boy. He turned 9 years old, and he's like, "Dad, I want to go to the game anyway. It's soccer and I want to enjoy it." And to give you an idea of how excited people were, the Chicago Fire, they play at Soldier Field, and they have an average attendance somewhere between 10 to 15,000 fans. There was well over 60,000 people at Soldier Field for that soccer game, so it was clear why they were there. But something happened to me while I was at Soldier Field that I think, I don't know, man, I went through like a transition, and I relate it to Michigan football and the way that I feel about sports in general. So I've always been a big proponent of, I don't like the sit down crowd. I like to stand up, be rowdy, get on your feet, make it a hostile environment, on and on and on and on. there were so many people that were standing in front of us every time it looked like somebody was going to score a goal. And even if my son tried to stand and got on somebody's shoulders, he couldn't see shit what was happening. And so I feel like, I don't know if it's the old man coming out in front of me, but I was very like, hey, down in front. The people back here can't see. And I think I'm starting to evolve and see where those people come from, because look, as an adult, sure, you can stand up and you can get a look at what's going on, but there's some people, whether they're shorter human beings, children, that no matter what happens, they're missing big moments because everybody in front of them is standing up. And I just kind of felt like, I don't know, I was pissed off at the people who stand up, and I felt like I was in a weird position here. I'm like, am I just old man? Am I, shaking my fist at the sky, or is this legitimate frustration?
Well, I did get a photo from you during the middle of the game with 3 of the largest gentlemen I've ever seen in my life that were blocking your son's view, which is also unfortunate.
I mean, it didn't help that basically a foreign national rugby team had sat in front of us that averaged 250 across the board and like 6'6". Like, it was wild.
So, well, okay. I mean, did he have a good time? Did Sully have a good time? That's the most important part.
He did have a good time. I'll give him that. But he wasn't able, like, every big moment, every time somebody was getting ready to score, everybody stood, and he's like, he can't see what the hell's going on. And I felt bad for him. And then I'm like, you know what? Those people who are always complaining about down in front, maybe there's something to that. Because if everybody stays seated, everybody can see. Everybody can see what's happening.
Hence the inventor of stadium seating rejoices. Like, I mean, like, that's why it's shaped that way, so everybody can see. If you stand up, it kind of defeats the purpose. No, I get it, man. Look, I haven't really had to deal with that yet. I mean, you don't have
you're usually up in the press box.
Yeah,
you're not really attending many sporting events in the stands. We know that. For sure, there's nobody blocking your view at a Nickelback concert because you're practically the only one there. So, you haven't really had to deal with it much.
Sold out arena in Vegas. Thank you very much. Sold out. Standing room only.
Standing room only in a closet. Brandon and the band.
Belting all of 50,000 people at the top of our lungs. Wondering, just so many great tropes and advice and life lessons presented.
Is that an old man complaint, or is there some validity to that? I mean, let's say you take your kid to a football game and there's a big moment that happens. You want them to be able to see that and experience that, right?
I think it's amplified when it's your kid. There's no doubt. I mean, like I can just imagine every time you probably looked over at him and you're like, damn it. Like every time, probably, if I had to guess. I wouldn't say that's old man vibe, but like it is like, how can you expect people not to stand up and cheer? I mean, it's just kind of a bummer of an occurrence when you've got a little dude or somebody who's just not that tall. Like, if I don't know, my sister's like 5'1". If she went to a game, she wouldn't be able to see either. So
like, here's what I propose. And I talked about this today. I had a meeting earlier today, and we talked a little bit of sports. And here's what I propose, Brandon. The first 12 rows of, let's say, Michigan Stadium or any stadium, but particularly Michigan Stadium, the first 12 rows all the way around the bowl, standing room only. You can't sit if you're down in the first 12 rows. And then everything after that, you sit down, you're expected to be seated. And then that way the folks that want to sit and watch the game have an opportunity to see it.
Yeah. So okay. And there's my mom chiming in. She might have an inch on my sister, all of 5'2". So it's a difficult thing for some people to deal with. And Sully just turned 9. He's not 6 feet tall, right? So he's gonna have some trouble seeing over and again, you had some large dudes in front of you, which probably made it even worse. So anyway, all right. So that was Wednesday, and then Friday, I was en route to Minnesota to cover the game. So that explains our hiatus over the last week. I know like I said, there's been some people that were like, dude, you guys aren't even getting close to 3 or 4 shows a week. Yeah. Last week was a little.
I thought we were doing a show on Friday, Brandon. I didn't even get the notification until 50 minutes before we were going to go live. Less than an hour notice I got.
I made the decision to go to the game not much before that, like the day before. I was like, I'm just gonna go. Like, I'm gonna go. I know you had something over the weekend again, I think, right? It was for more. Dude, you are like soccer dad to the max right now.
I'm knee deep in soccer life. Wow. Travel league soccer and going to Chicago it's just all soccer all the time.
So anyway, and then the game was late as hell on Saturday night, and they killed them, and people probably went to bed. Anyway, so here we are. Here we are on a Monday. We're back. We're going to talk the Minnesota game. We're going to look at the upcoming game against Indiana. We've got burning questions. We've got a TFG segment. We've got a lot of stuff to talk about when it comes to the game. So let's get right into that. Chris, this Michigan team, they're just building. They're building momentum. They're picking up steam. They're starting to fire on all cylinders a little bit more each week. I mean, that's what it looks like to me. Obviously, the final score 52-10, and again did it with ease. JJ McCarthy eating hot dogs and sitting in a hot tub in the third quarter. I mean, they're rolling right now, even more so than we thought. It took us a while. For a while we were always we were saying 40s, and then Michigan was always scoring in the 30s. Then we reverted back. Now we're saying 30s. Michigan put up a 50 burger. So I don't know if you remember, Chris, but you said 42-6. I said 45-10, and Trent said 41-10. So we were kind of in the ballpark, but I guess just overall, man, 52-10, and again looked like just a day at the office. Didn't look difficult at all.
Yeah, it looks real easy for them right now, and I will say. Yeah, I mean, had a lot going on. Son's birthday on Friday, just got back from Chicago. And there's usually one game a week or one game during the season where I like to just watch it from home because when you're at the game, particularly when you're on the sidelines and taking photos, you miss a lot of, what's actually happening in the game. And to sit back and watch them play against Minnesota, comfortable, dominant, precise, both sides of the ball completely in control, cool, calm, collected, like everything you would want to see in a football team at this point in the year, Michigan has, and they're only getting better as time goes on. And so, I walked away from that game thinking, I can confidently say, I just don't know that there's a team in the country that can beat them with the style of play that they have. Michigan doesn't do anything, and this is kind of similar to what Joel Klatt said, but I think it was really evident and obvious against Minnesota. There's nothing gimmicky about their offense. There's nothing flashy. They don't rely on big and explosive plays. It's just a constant chip away at you until there's just nothing left. And they do that for a full 4 quarters. And by the time the fourth quarter rolls around, the game's already in the bag and the starters are on the sideline relaxing. And you see this week after week now. And given the way that they play football, I just don't know that there's a team out there that's going to be able to, okay, do something to that. Let's say you put up points on that defense. Are you going to be able to stop their offense? If you stop their offense, are you going to be able to score a lot of points on that defense? I don't know that there's a team that can overcome everything that Michigan has to offer. And like I said, watching it from the couch on Saturday was felt really, really good about where Michigan's at this point in the season.
Yeah, funny point made here by P. Maximus. Yeah, okay, technically the offense still was in the 30-point range. They got 14 from the 2 pick sixes. No, but obviously that's part of it. The complementary football, all the tropes and cliches you want to throw out there, the offense helping the defense and vice versa, and special teams is working. And it just, to Chris's point, it looked real easy. It looked, just kind of methodical, just kind of here's what we do. We're doing it again. In Minnesota, you have no say in the matter at all. We're going to do
it. Looks like they're still playing the non-conference schedule.
Yes, it does. I mean, they're winning now 2 Big Ten games on the road by larger margins than they beat up on the cupcake non-conference schedule. So, I mean, I know Minnesota's not very good, and neither is Nebraska. But what the hell you want them to do, man? Those are the conference opponents on the schedule right now.
Get better.
And they're blowing them out by 40 without even trying. I mean, so... Yeah, it's been impressive to this point. JJ McCarthy, super sharp again. Blake Corum, another solid day. The defense, I'm running out of things to say about the defense just as an entire unit. Jesse Minter as a coordinator. We'll get into a little bit of that with one of my burning questions. But
how about Mason Graham, the way he looked in his first game back?
He's coming up here in just a moment, Chris. Remember that name because we will get into that in just a second. So, Chris, I picked the wrong one. I believe I went 1 for 5 on my specific predictions, and I'm going to see if you're going to give me a grace period on one of them. You usually don't, and that's fine.
The answer is no.
Number 1, I've been going back and forth with these two guys all year, and I picked the wrong one this weekend. I said that Donovan Edwards will score a touchdown. He did not, but Colston Loveland did And another just phenomenal play design. I mean, he's open by 8 yards. He walks into the end zone. But, dude, here we are now, 6 weeks in, halfway through the season. No touchdowns for Dono. Still hasn't really gotten going. Khalil Mullings is looking like a better back at this point. I'm just going to say it. He does. But now, Colston Loveland in the end zone looks like a weapon. Now he's probably fresh as hell down the backstretch. I mean, good to see 18 get in the end zone for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was his only catch of the evening, right? One catch,
so.
20, I think 24 yards, touchdown. He had another one that I think was in the end zone that he had in his hands, kind of slipped out. Good play by the defender there. But yeah, I mean, this is a guy, and I feel like a broken record at this point, but we heard all offseason just how elite Colston Loveland was and expected a lot of production out of him. And I think he might be third or fourth on the team in total receptions throughout the year, but it was nice to see him hit the end zone. And I think what you said is spot on, that he's completely healthy at this point. He finally got in the end zone, and down the stretch when Michigan's going to need him most, he's going to be available to go. So yeah, it was nice to see him get 6.
And with Donovan, man, I just don't know. He just doesn't look right. I'm not sure. I can't really put my finger on it, because at times, like if he does get a little bit of a crease, he looks as fast as he's ever looked. But other times he looks a little hesitant, or like he doesn't know exactly where he's supposed to. And I don't think that's the case at all. But I also don't think it's just bad luck and bad blocking on every carry that he has. Like, that doesn't really make sense either. I think there is some of that, but it's been strange to watch. And so again, I was wrong. I thought it would be Donovan getting in the end zone, and it wasn't. How many times do we need to go back to this well, dude? I mean, it's been week after week after week at this point.
I don't know what it is, man. I am so puzzled and baffled. And I'll say this. I know that Blake Corum got the touchdown, and congratulations to Blake Corum, because he tied Mike Hart. He moves to number 4 all-time in career rushing touchdowns with 41 in his career. But I felt like there was an opportunity to get Dono in the end zone. He had a couple of good runs there. They were right on the goal line. Turn around, give it to number 7, let him get a taste of the end zone, and maybe that sparks something open. They bring Corum back in, and Corum gets 6. You hate to be disappointed that Blake Corum scored a touchdown and hit a career milestone, but I couldn't help but find myself feeling like, damn it, that carry should have went to Donovan Edwards. Like, he'd had a couple good runs on that drive. He got real close. Would have liked to have seen him finish it off. And yeah, man, again, talk about broken record when it comes to Colston Loveland. Every single week there is a belief going into the game that this is the time that Donovan Edwards is going to explode, and you're going to see what we saw last year, particularly towards the latter part of the season. And then it doesn't happen. It doesn't even come close to happening. And then on, the next show, we're like, what's going on? What's the issue? And I don't know. Like, I think you're right. I don't think it's one particular thing. I don't think it's blocking. I don't think it's Donovan didn't just forget how to be a running back, but something does. It just looks off. Just something is not firing right. And I can't figure out what it is. And I can only hope that as the season goes on, he gets it figured out. What I will say is the opportunity that his lack of production has given to Khalil Mullings and how effective he's been in limited reps. And I put an article out about this earlier today, has been, for me, one of the most pleasant surprises of the season. I mean, Khalil Mullings going from linebacker to running back, and sort of like, you'll use him if you need him in certain situations. I know he's great as a short yardage back, but over the last 2 weeks, he's shown that he can be an every down back as far as I'm concerned, and has certainly earned the opportunity to get more carries on Saturdays.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. Dude, it's funny. I forgot about that, but as soon as Donovan got him down to the goal line, he had, I think he said 2 carries back to back maybe or something. And that's all levels of football. You let the guy who gets you down there, reap the benefits, get the reward, get in the end zone. And we've seen it a million times with Blake Corum, where he does all the work and gets all the way down there, and they leave him in for 1 or 2 more tries to get into the end zone. I was like, I even said out loud, like, Donovan finally going to get his touchdown right here. And then he comes trotting out. I was like, man, that's got to be such a kick in the pants. But yeah, I mean, maybe the Corum milestone was at play a little bit there, I guess. But I'm with you. I thought for sure that was like, here's Donovan finally going to get into the end zone, and he didn't. So yeah,
it's like putting him on the free throw line. Let him see a couple go in the basket, and then see what happens next week. And sucks it didn't happen.
All right, here's the one I'm going to see how you give me. This is a judgment call on for Chris. JJ McCarthy. This is how I worded it. JJ McCarthy will have less than 6 incompletions. He was 14 of 20. That is 6. I got it wrong.
Well, but the wording was less, right? Yeah. Sorry. I mean, Vegas rules apply here, Brandon. I can't give you a pass.
That's how I took it. But again, super efficient day, and actually, that's the most incompletions he's had all year. I didn't know that.
Wild.
I took a number I was like 6, and then I went back and looked at all of his games. I'm like, well, Chris always tells me I need to go out on a limb a little bit, and this is not going out on a limb because he doesn't throw incompletions. Even in the game when he had 3 picks, he only had 5, he only had 2 other incompletions. So this was, I guess, statistically his worst game completing passes. But dude, 14 of 20. He had the touchdown pass. He had 2 touchdown runs. The kid was lights out again. Jim Harbaugh called him a dog after the game. He was all smiles. Dude, when 6 incompletions, it's like, man, he had a kind of a down day. You know that he's spinning it pretty good week in and week out.
I mean, what can you say about him? He's just so damn good, so efficient. Yes. So doesn't have to play 4 quarters. I think he's thrown 4 passes in the fourth quarter, maybe all against Rutgers. I'm not sure if there was another team he played in the fourth quarter, but accurate, efficient, a leader in every sense of the word. I mean, again, everything you would want in your starting quarterback, JJ McCarthy is, and he's a big reason why I feel like it's just going to be tough to beat this football team, man. He's so good. He's so precise, his footwork, his vision. And then we saw it against Minnesota. He's not afraid to get outside the pocket and create with his legs, lower the shoulder, put on the boom if he needs to cross the goal line. I mean, everything you want in the dude behind center, he's got it. And it's just really fun to watch, man. I'm enjoying it thoroughly. And again, getting to see it from the couch on Saturday was even more of like a damn, because you can't see that down in the field. You can't see those balls that are on a rope, and how precise it is. And when you watch it from above, it's a totally different perspective. And he is just good. He's really, really good.
He's playing out of his mind. Jim Harbaugh had a couple quotes after the game that were really powerful. And yes, of course he's biased, but I don't think he's wrong. He's talking about JJ playing the position better than anybody. He might not have the stats. He might not have the big numbers, but if you got to go into battle with a kid at that position, he'd be hard to pass up. I mean, with all the good quarterbacks in the country right now, he'd be really hard.
I'll save this. Up. You know what? I'm going to make this a burning. I was going to ask you now. I'll make it a burning question.
All right. Well, we'll get to that here momentarily. I don't think a lot of time needs to be spent on this one. I thought Braden McGregor would get home and get another sack. He didn't. That's hard to predict sometimes. Michigan only had 2 sacks. Ethan Kalikmanis was certainly trying to get rid of the ball quickly. He was doing that all night. Josiah Stewart had a sack, as did Mason Graham. So I was wrong. Braden McGregor did not have a sack in this one. Chris, and I put that up there because we talked to Braden McGregor. He talked about being 100% healthy. He's doing everything he's ever been able to do on the field, but just, didn't get home this week.
Yeah, I mean, it's fine. I mean, the way the defense operates, obviously you'd like to see the guys get home. You'd like to see sacks, but ultimately outside of, Mike Sainer still, I think, was in as good a position as he could have been. I know Keon Sabb over the top wasn't where he needed to be. Jim Harbaugh said it was a bad call on the defense overall. They were all out of position. Overall, man, that defense is just so damn good. Like, whether they're getting to the quarterback, I know they want to get to the quarterback. I know Braden McGregor wants to get sacks, but ultimately, like, nobody can score on this defense. Nobody can move the ball. And even when they do, it's like, you're scoring maybe 1 quarter out of the whole game. So you better hope you're putting up 40 or 50 in that quarter because they're going to shut you out the rest of the way. So I'm not, I'd like to see more sacks, but yeah, not too concerned.
Somebody just mentioned, was it in the comments? Were you talking about Braden McGregor's snap count? Just curious there. He played 28 snaps of the available 57. So about half. And that's actually pretty typical for the D linemen. They rotate so much. It's about half and half. The linebackers, they don't usually play as much either. And then the DBs, they're usually out there almost the whole game. So anyway, really effective defense. I mean, obviously the 2 pick sixes, we're getting to that next. Number 4, my prediction was that Michigan will have 3 takeaways, which I think is actually going out on a limb a little bit because we talked about how hard it is to predict takeaways. But I just saw this being a rough go for the quarterback. He's not that good. He doesn't have the strongest arm in the world. I thought Michigan would put a lot of pressure on him, and then I was like, maybe a muff punt or a fumble or this or that. I thought 2 picks and a fumble was what I put in my write-up, and they did get the 2 picks. Both of them went back for a touchdown. Again, Michigan's defense was as dominant as it's been all year. Technically didn't have the 3rd takeaway, but they locked him down, man. And those 2 pick sixes, I mean, that's one of the most exciting plays in football, and it was I don't know if Keon Sabb and Will Johnson have ever had one that easy. Both of them just catch and run back.
Yeah, I mean, Will Johnson's came 15 seconds into the
12
game?
12 seconds into the game.
Something like, yeah. So you knew right from the bat, as soon as that happened, it was going to be a long night for Minnesota. And it was really nice to see Keon Sabb get that pick 6 because he's a guy who's been patient, put in the work, put in the time. He's finally getting some reps on the field, and to see him take one back to the house, I think was, that was awesome because he's certainly growing into the position. Something that Jim Harbaugh is very high on. Said he's earlier in the season said Keon's starting caliber. He's a starting caliber player, and then he goes out and does something like that, and you can start to see the fruits of all the work he's put in. So, yeah, I mean, not 3 turnovers, but when you get 2 pick sixes, that's not bad either.
Right. Yeah, it was funny actually. Like down on the field during that's another cool thing. I don't know if we've talked about this before, but when we go on the road, press box people are allowed to go down on the field pregame. It's awesome. Michigan doesn't let us do that. So I really like to do that at the away game. It was a little chilly. I was down there and I didn't dress for the occasion very well. But anyway, there's a couple guys in that secondary that just have a look. Keon Sabb's one of them, dude. He's all arms and legs. He's long, he's lanky, he's lean. Just looks like he's ready to make a play. And he used all of that on that play. Kind of sunk back into the zone. Quarterback thought he could get it over the top of him, and he just climbed the ladder, dude, went up and got it, took it back for a touchdown. It was a phenomenal play. And, yeah, kind of speaks to some of the things we had heard about him. He's a big-time recruit. I mean, kid went to IMG Academy. Only top-flight prospects go there pretty much. And he was recruited by 30, 40 schools, big-time schools around the country. And Michigan landing him was a big deal. And he's kind of starting to settle in a little bit and look like he's going to make some plays. So that was really cool to see. And last but not least, the only one I technically got right was that Michigan will again cover the spread. It was 18.5. They won by, just 42. So, yeah, they did all right on the spread. I just thought it was going to be more of the same. I thought, look, Nebraska's not very good. Minnesota's not very good. They played each other in a damn near stalemate earlier in the season. Like, Michigan's going to roll them. And they did. 52-10. It's crazy to say that in a 52-10 game, it wasn't even that close, but it wasn't.
Right. Yeah. The score did not reflect how dominant it was. I mean, how about that? NBC putting up the graphic about 73 of the 74 players getting snaps in the game, and then focusing right in on Greg Tarr, long snapper, putting the camera right in his face, being like, "That's the only dude that didn't play tonight." Did
you see that he made a TikTok of himself?
I'm not sure that you saw it, but I put out an article about it today.
That's hilarious.
It's on WolverineDigest.com. You can go look for it, but. Greg Tarr, I mean, I think he's a senior this year, but he's a long snapper.
Yeah,
he's been around for a minute. But for some odd reason, NBC was highlighting that Michigan had played 73 of the 74 guys that traveled, and decided to put Greg Tarr right front and center and be like, that's the only guy that hasn't played tonight. And he had some fun with it on social media. So, yeah, man, I mean, it's, again, dominant start to finish. I remember preseason looking at the schedule thinking, man, back-to-back road trips at Nebraska, at Minnesota, that could be trouble for a team that's, just getting into Big Ten play. And it looks like it's a continuation of the non-conference. In fact, I think you actually said it. They're playing better now than they were against teams like ECU and UNLV, and they're hitting their stride.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Great time
to be doing. We have a super chat from Ben Etzani. But what I want to do is I want to save it for our burning questions, because it's in line with that. So we'll go back and I'll have you pull that up when we get to burning questions.
We'll do that momentarily. And I feel like a dink now. I've been doing Etzioni.
Etzioni.
It's not Italian. It's not Italian.
It's not.
How is that not Italian? That's what I want to know. Can you
how do you know it's not? Oh, it says right there it's not Italian.
Yeah, he said it in there. Can you get canceled for putting an Italian accent on a non-Italian name?
Yes, you can get canceled for pretty much anything.
No, bring it on. All right.
You are very cancelable. Although if you didn't get canceled by the Nickelback stuff, I don't know that. Well, you might be Teflon.
Yeah, I might be Teflon Brown over here. Here we go.
This fucking guy.
Everybody's favorite segment. We will battle through some
this fucking guy.
Battle through some echoes for a moment, Chris, if you can. Let me know if they get too unbearable.
This fucking guy.
Yeah. I'm gonna go first because it's not Michigan related at all, but I saw some people already mentioning it in the comments. I don't know.
Well,
Chris,
I have the same one.
Is it Mario Cristobal?
It is.
Dude, what
this
the
fucking guy
is he doing? It's almost fireable on the spot. The game's over. Like the game is take a knee, game's over. Instead, they choose to run the ball, fumble, Georgia Tech capitalizes, touchdown, Miami loses. Dude, I mean, like, if Jim Harbaugh ever did something like that, people would be, and maybe the Miami, I don't know. I don't know what it's like down there. I don't know how, the media is handling it. I don't know what the fans are. I know people are pissed, obviously, but I cannot even comprehend what he was thinking or what that was about, dude. One of the weirdest things I've ever seen.
Yeah, tremendous echo, by the way.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, man, I don't know, to see like players crying on the sideline trying to make sense of what happened. I just don't understand. I mean, when you're coaching at that level, you understand how much time is on the clock. You understand that really literally all you have to do is take a knee and the game is in hand. I don't understand how somebody at that level can make such a huge mistake that leads. Now, give Georgia Tech credit because
they had to capitalize.
They still had to capitalize and go win the game, and they did. Dude, that was so bad that it almost felt a little fishy. You know what I mean? Like, I know that gambling's a big part of the whole equation now, and how things. That's what I'm saying. When you make a move that is so dumb, so boneheaded, and things play out the way they do, it just seemed a little too suspicious. Like there might be some money riding on something. Otherwise, I can't explain it. I don't know how a head coach at that level making that money at that type of university makes such a boneheaded decision. But I mean, you can see it across national media. Everybody's looking at this guy saying, I don't know how he's still employed.
Cristobal's checking his FanDuel after the game. He had Georgia Tech money line. He's like, all right. Little $50,000 signing bonus right there, whatever. Yeah, it's inexcusable, man. At that level, like you said, with the money on the line, whether it, I don't let myself go there, but you start to wonder. You
try to rationalize it any other way. There's no rationalization. None.
Yeah. No, it's
the only thing I can think of Michigan related that even comes remotely close with Harbaugh would have been, he got a lot of shit for that trouble with the snap play. I think he didn't have max protect. And, there were a lot of people on him with, how that play was called or how it transpired or whatever the case is. And I remember what a gut punch that felt like. I can't imagine what, if you're a true Miami football fan, bless your soul, because that was Miami's first loss of the season too, right? Weren't they undefeated?
I thought they were ranked I thought they were ranked like 17th, so I'm not positive, but
I feel like that was Miami's first loss of the season. Maybe have somebody double check on that.
Yeah, either way, just a boneheaded call. I mean, it's an easy TFG. Yeah, that was their first loss. You're right. Yeah, they're 4-1 now. So yeah, man, that is crazy. And just real quick, AJ, thank you for the donation there. I'm okay with that statement. I can get on board.
You know what? I'm okay with that statement too. I'm not saying Creed is great, but I will. If you see me meandering about it,
she wears a coat of colors, loved by some, none by others. She's immortalized.
I don't even know what the hell that is.
That's a great tune, dude. It's one of their deep cuts. If you're a real
from the B side.
If you're a real, if you're a real creature. That's
creature. Okay.
I was trying to think of like a play on words with that.
No, that was a good one. That was a good one. Yeah.
All right. If you're a real creature, then you know that one. Shout out. All right. Anyway, Yeah, TFG, super easy choice. People were already throwing his name out there before we even got through the intro. It was bad.
Wild.
It was bad, dude. A Credo? Okay, I can do a Credo.
Credo. I like Creature.
Creature? Okay.
Doesn't quite roll off the tongue, but I think it's
you could coin it the right way. It might work. All right. Very quickly, just to talk about some of the top performances in that game, Chris. Pro Football Focus had, AJ Barner again takes the top spot on offense with a 93.2 grade. He was in for a ton of running plays. He played more snaps than Colston Loveland again, but much more on the running plays. Colston Loveland is clearly the pass catching target, but Barner is not a slouch in that department. He can catch the ball. He's made some nice first downs this year. He's proving to be extremely, extremely valuable on that offense. JJ McCarthy, number 2, we talked about his performance, and Roman Wilson yet again finds himself in the top 3 with a 75.4.
Before you go to the defense, how about Jim Harbaugh in the transfer portal picking up Barner and Jack Tuttle?
Yeah,
Barner who's getting more snaps in the tight end position, and Tuttle who's now QB2. That's 2 pretty good pickups from Indiana. Who
Barner had a
face this weekend, by the way.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, Barner had a 17-yard catch in that game. I mean, he's a player, man. He's a player. He's huge. That's another thing. You get down on the field pregame, you really get a sense of how big some of these dudes are. I'll tell you what. There's no amount of money that you could give me to tackle Kalel Mullings coming through the hole. Dude's a brick shit house at running back. AJ Barner is a gigantic human playing tight end. I know he's been out the last couple of games and maybe has been usurped on the starting line. Good word, right? I see your face over there.
I know who you're going.
Miles Hinton is gigantic, but the line has clearly been better the last 2 weeks with Ladarius Henderson at left tackle and Carson Barnhart both back over at right tackle where he spent last year. So anyway, AJ Barner, number 1 spot, 93.2, off the charts kind of grade for him too. And then, like you said earlier, Chris, just come back, surgery on your hand, play with a club. Mason Graham, number 1 defender, dude, was out of his mind. Will Johnson had the pick 6 to start the game. Basically, he was number 2. And then Josiah Stewart, another transfer.
Yeah.
Had a hell of a game. Put a ton of pressure on the quarterback.
Put a couple good weeks together. He looked good at Nebraska. I think he was maybe defensive player of the week for Michigan. Was it Big Ten? Was he one of the Big Ten defensive players of the week?
I can't remember. 2.5 sacks or something. So his numbers were really good. Yeah.
But he's starting to obviously find, he's getting into his rhythm a little bit. It's just, dude, watching Mason Graham on that defensive front, he just looked like, and to be so young, I mean, he's only a sophomore, and the guy is out there completely dominating, and you could tell how just important he is to that front.
Yeah, Will Johnson, I think, had a great line about it. He said, our class is just nasty. And he's right, dude. I mean, you've got Mason Graham, you've got Kenneth Grant. It's
rowing the boat with a club hand. I mean, come on.
Yeah, that was great.
Phenomenal.
Dude. That was great, man. That was great. Yeah. So, Keon Sabb, is he also part of that class? Is he a second-year player? I believe he is. I have to double check that. He might be a third-year guy, but regardless, that class has got some future pros in it. Guys who are already playing major roles in year 2. And going to continue, to really be the centerpieces of that defense. So yes, Keon Sabb also part. Zeke Berry, Keon Sabb, all those guys are part of that class as a second year guy. So yeah, it's a special group, man. And Mason Graham to come back, said he'd never had anything like that before, playing with a club and not being able to use his hand. He said, I did it all week in practice, and
that's an interesting question, AJ.
I know what you're looking at. I saw it.
Is the club drippy?
That feels like a burning question. Well done, AJ.
I feel like if there was some sort of design on it or something, if you had added something to it, it was a pretty it was stout, but it was a modest club. If you were to put like a like a shark's face on it, kind of like how they have on the front of the Jets or whatever, where you can see the teeth, or you have something, you made it look like a boxing glove. bedazzle it up, something like that. Not quite drippy, but there's a way that you could make a club drippy for sure. Phenomenal question.
It's no Aiden Hutchinson finger cast, but
it's no Aiden Hutchinson finger. Is that drippy?
I mean, it says Hutch on it, dude. Come on. And he won a Big Ten title wearing it.
You know what would have been drippy? What, do you remember that guy from Jesus? It was when we went to Wisconsin. And he wrote, what did he write on his arm? He had it going all the way down his arm. He was one of their defenders.
Oh, yeah, he's a linebacker for them.
What the hell did it say? It said,
is it like Death Row or something?
Death Row or something like that. Death Row. Yeah. Now, if he had written Death Row on that club in like big bold letters, yeah, that's drippy.
Death Row, Wisconsin linebacker. I'm going to just Google it.
I remember he was big too. He was solid. Didn't do much in the game.
Leo Chenal, that's right. Leo Chenal, the Wisconsin linebacker. Death Row. Leo Chenal. Yeah, that was we both spotted that early on in that game. We were like, "Damn, dude, that's hard."
I was like, "Oh, this might be trouble."
That might be trouble.
And then Michigan just beat that ass, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, Michigan killed them. That game, honestly, dude, was like the turning point to realizing this team's different. This team is different. Because I remember I had them losing. I picked them to lose going into Camp Randall because they hadn't won there in whatever, it was like 20 years or something at that point. It was a long time. Could not have been more wrong about that one that day. They took it to the Badgers and yeah, Death Row, just written in Sharpie, like not even well done.
So to answer your question, AJ, not quite drippy, but had he added something to it like that, yeah, you could drip out a club.
So you are saying that the club is not drippy.
In and of itself, no.
Interesting. I wasn't sure where you were gonna go with that. I thought that was kind of
put like one of those gigantic Hulk things, Hulk fists over it, something like that.
A blue one, perhaps. Here we go. I mean,
look at this guy. Look at him. Look at him.
And then on the other arm, it says he who something, and he's got a cross drawn. I mean, come on, dude.
I thought that guy was coming out to rip off heads.
Is that drippy or is that just like wild?
Well, listen, if you come out and have a monster game, it's drippy. If you get your ass kicked, then it just kind of looks a little cheesy.
Yeah, fair point. Fair point. Jim Harbaugh wearing the buffs. He did get involved in the picture. He was pretty pumped about that.
How long until he puts them on? Somebody's going to put him on Jim Harbaugh. He already wears glasses anyway.
Yeah, that could be a little difficult.
They're going to have to win a natty for Harbaugh to throw him on.
All right, dude. 42 minutes in, and we got a late start. Do we want to do burning questions now, or do we want to save it for Wednesday?
We absolutely need to do burning questions. We missed two damn shows, Brandon.
That's fair. 3 if you count the post game. Yeah, that's fair. Let's do it. All right, you want to get us started, or you want me to get us kicked off here?
Yeah, I'll kick it off. I will kick it off, Brandon. And I'm going to ask you the same question that I asked you last week, but now we've got another game under our belt and more results in front of our face. Who would you give more reps to right now at the running back position? Donovan Edwards or Khalil Mullings? And I have a bonus question on after that. But who would you give more reps to at this point?
I don't remember exactly how I answered it last week. I think I said I would keep it the same as it's been.
Yeah.
I'm going with Khalil Mullings. I'm giving that dude the ball more often than he's been getting it, and probably more than Donovan. And I don't know if I hate saying that, but I'm just so high on Donovan and his upside and what he's been able to do. Been covering him for years since he was in high school. But Khalil Mullings is flat out running the ball better right now. There's no way to deny that.
Yeah, that's where I'm at. I mean, he's averaging, 6 point something yards per carry. Donovan Edwards is somewhere just over 3. He's almost hit as many yards on the ground as Edwards has in about a third of the carries. And I think it's not a knock against Donovan Edwards. You and I, we both love the guy, love his personality, love everything he brings to the team. But if you're trying to be unbiased and you're trying to be realistic about it, Khalil Mullings is establishing himself as somebody who should be on the field more. And you can't want to prevent that because you're going into week 7 and you still want to see something out of Donovan Edwards. To me, Khalil Mullings has earned those reps. He looks like RB2 as far as I'm concerned right now. Will that change moving forward? Maybe, but I think you got to give the guy more reps and, he's putting in the work. He's getting it done. He's earned it.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. He's been really, really good, man. And
here's the bonus question.
Oh yeah, bonus
question. Who finishes with more rushing yards at the end of the season? Is it Donovan Edwards or Khalil Mullings? And as I'm asking that question, I can't even believe it's a real question I'm asking.
Do you have the marks? Not where are they at right now? Do you have that?
I do have them. Hold on 1 second. Let me pull it up. Think about it. Mull it over.
Dude, that is you're right, dude. The fact that that's even a question right now is wild.
Okay, here we are in rushing yards. Donovan Edwards right now has 177 yards on 51 carries. Khalil Mullings has 147 yards on 23 carries. Only 30 yards separate the two.
I'm still going to go Dono. We'll have more rushing yards at the end of the season because dude, I don't know. Call me gullible, call me stupid. I still feel like you could give him the ball 6 times and he could finish with 180 like any week. You know?
Yeah.
He's not carrying it a lot, but he doesn't we've seen it. He doesn't need a lot. That's a great question though. That is a great question for the halfway point of the season.
30 yards and Mullings has half the carries.
Yeah, I'm going to take Dono, but the fact that there's even a discussion about it.
I'm also going to take Donovan Edwards, but one more week of this, and I'm going to start to shift to the Mullings side here. I got to see. Like I said, I love the guy, but I got to see something's got to happen. It's got to start to click. We're week 7 now. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
it's got to start to happen for number 7. And God damn it, he should have gotten in the end zone this last weekend. I'll let it go. Blake Corum, congratulations. Happy for you. Got to get number 7 going, man. He's too important to this offense.
All right, I like this question. Jim Harbaugh would not because he doesn't like comparing players because someone always gets diminished. But I think this is a great discussion. We saw how dominant he was in this first game back after being hurt. We talked about Mason Graham, the club, and the impact that he had on the game. Chris, is Mason Graham a top 3 player on this defense? Think about who's on that defense. And if you can put him in the top 3 already as a sophomore after missing some games and playing injured right now.
There's a strong argument that he is. I mean, you've got Chris Jenkins, Will Johnson, and then is it Mason Graham? Is it Junior Colson? Is it Mike Sainer still? I mean, all these guys. I mean, correct. There's a lot of guys that could be that number 3 spot, but I would say I don't know that anybody has a stronger case than Mason Graham. Okay. So to me, it's like, Chris Jenkins, Will Johnson, 1A, 1B, and then you put guys like Mason Graham, Mike Sainer still, Junior Colson. They're all in the same category as well. So yeah, I think you could say that. Kenneth Grant also.
It just goes to show what this defense is really made of because I'm with you. I think Will Johnson, I actually think there's a pretty hard 3. And then you get into the discussion at 4. I think it's Chris Jenkins, Will Johnson, Mike Sainer still. I think that's your top 3. We've talked so many times about Mike Sainer still just always doing the right thing, right place, right time, always making plays. He obviously had the pick 6 a couple weeks ago. But I think you could make a discussion. You could make an argument for Mason Graham to be in the top 3. And you could certainly put him at 4. And then you've got Junior Colson. You've got Rod Moore. You've got even McCarthy. I mean, the defense is so good across the board. Kenneth Grant, it's a fun discussion to have. But I think he's just barely on the outside looking in when you're talking top 3. Just barely.
Yeah. Glad that he's not going to be eligible for the NFL this upcoming offseason.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
All right, back to me here. Let me pull it back up because I closed it out because I fell asleep, if I'm being completely honest. So bring back up that super question that we had.
Correct.
Whatever the hell you call it.
There we go.
I'll just put it like Ben put it. Are there any concerns about a team tightening up if they are ever actually in a close game in the fourth quarter? Let's start it there because that is my question. My question was, are you at all worried about the lack of a 4-quarter battle? Do you think that will come back to haunt Michigan? We've seen Ohio State tested. We've seen some of the other top teams across the country tested. They've had to deal with it. Michigan hasn't faced that type of adversity yet. Do you feel good about that, or does that leave you a little bit concerned, to see how they're going to perform if they do get in a full 4-quarter battle.
I don't have any worries at all. I really don't. I don't have any worries at all because of J.J. McCarthy's mental makeup, because of guys like Zach Zinner and Trevor Keegan and Drake Nugent. Just those are old men, dude. Those are dudes. They're not going to be rattled. They're not going to care about the situation of the game. They're going to go out and they're going to do their job. Flip side, you've got Chris Jenkins. You've got Rod Moore. You've got Makari Page. Will Johnson, I know he's only a sophomore, but the dude's about as cool as any player I've ever watched under pressure or in big-time situations, guarding Marvin Harrison Jr. as a true, whatever the hell it is. He's unflappable. I think there's a lot of guys who fit that bill on this team. And like he's saying, dude, there's too many. There's too many calm, cool, collected guys on this team that have played a ton of football for me to have any worry about it. I know they haven't seen it yet, and you never will know until they're in it. But if I'm reading the tea leaves and looking at who's out there and who's going to be in those situations, I could not feel better about where Michigan is at right now. And that goes back to the 81% of their production returning more than any team in the Big Ten. What was it, second or fifth most or something in the country it was? I just don't worry about it. I know we haven't seen it. I don't know if we're going to see it for a while. I think they're just built for it. I really do.
Yeah, and I'll keep mine short and simple. I mean, that's where I'm at. And what I said earlier in the show, and again, I know it's just Minnesota. I know Minnesota's not going to be competing for a national championship, but I just don't see any team in the country that can hang with Michigan for a full 4 quarters, given the brand of football that Michigan plays. I think they are really, really good at just wearing you down over time. Penn State, maybe. Ohio State, possibly. But even then, the last 2 years, we've watched Michigan beat Ohio State by 20 plus. So am I worried about it? Absolutely not. And for all the reasons you said, this is a veteran team. I know they've only got a handful of captains technically, but the reality is there's captains all over the field on both sides of the ball, experience everywhere, veterans everywhere. This team is built. They just, it's not a bad thing that they haven't been tested. Nobody can hang with them so far. And I'm not sure that anybody this season will be able to until they get into the playoffs.
And honestly, their head coach is Jim Harbaugh. I don't even know if the guy's capable of worrying. I think
it's burnt wood in his chest, right? He doesn't have that.
It's just, if there's a synapse in your brain that controls that, his just isn't firing. It's not. It's not part of his DNA, man. He was like that as a player.
Didn't he say that when he was talking about the wood in his chest or the burnt wood? Did he say he was like, did he say dead inside? I can't remember exactly what the phrasing was.
It works. We'll throw this up quickly before I get to my question. Is Donovan approaching Andrew Anthony status at this point? Close, huh?
No, because I think what Donovan has done.
Yeah, I was going to say Andrew
last year. Yeah, eclipses. Andrew had one really good game against Michigan State that led you to believe that something was going to happen. But go ahead, go look at the stats for Andrew this season for Oklahoma, and you can see he's fully capable of putting up numbers. I mean, the dude's balling out. But no, I don't know what it is with Donovan. I'm not going to get back into it. It's puzzling, but I think it's just two different situations. Donovan Edwards, borderline Michigan legend for what he did last year and helped carry that team in Columbus and in the Big Ten championship game. It's just, you'd like to see him get in the end zone. The numbers aren't awful. I just think the expectation was so high. He's not hitting that. And that's kind of, again, if somebody had said you're going into week 7 and Donovan Edwards hasn't scored a touchdown, I would think, okay, well, he's been injured for 5 weeks then, or something happened, but that's not the case.
Yep, that's what we've kept having the same answer every week. It's been the same answer, the same discussion every week. Just hard to understand it. All right, Chris, it's a short question, but what are your thoughts? And it's not Michigan. It's actually not Michigan related, but it's because of what I saw out of Michigan that made me think of this. What are your thoughts on PJ Fleck at this point? Just flat out.
I kind of like him.
I
kind of like PJ.
Wow.
And here's why, Brandon. Prior to this game against Minnesota, I've always kind of viewed him as like, he's just a little much for me. He's kind of like, a little too much energy, a little too much like, but the way that he described Michigan going into the game, the respect that he gave Jim Harbaugh for what he's built in Ann Arbor, talking about the depth, talking about how they have a true sense of team. And then he comes out in the post game after getting his ass whooped and says, they're as good as advertised. Deepest team, toughest team, fastest team, strongest team, you name it. That's Michigan. I gained a lot of respect for him for the way that he viewed Michigan prior to the game and then what he had to say after the game. I think it was an accurate assessment. He said flat out, I've been a head coach for 11 years. I think that's the best team I've ever seen. And gained a little respect. Kind of like the Fleck.
At the stadium, he does his sprint balls thing out of the tunnel. And then the second quarter, when I forget if it was Michigan already up 14-0 after the pick six and half the fans had left already, and he does the sprint thing down to, I'm just like, come on, bro. And then you've got the, roll the boat, ski you mom, blah, blah, like I'm just like, bro, stop. Like the bloom is off the rose for him. I think like he's not in discussions for any of the top jobs anymore. And I think that's warranted. I don't know, like all the weird gimmicky shit's cool when you're at Western and you're going 12-0 and like you're the next upcoming, but now I'm just kind of like over it. I don't disagree with what you said. His comments about Michigan were awesome, and he was heaping praise and respect on the team that just flattened him in his house, but
that didn't feel gimmicky. That just felt like he was saying some real shit. Like this.
That part was real. Yeah,
and that's what I mean. Real. Like it. To see that side of him, I think was refreshing because you weren't getting coach speak.
Fair.
He was saying exactly what the truth was. And then we saw it play out on Saturday, and he came back out and re-emphasized everything he said prior to the game. So I mean, he can be a little bit much. I agree, Matt Kirby, but you can never accuse the guy of not bringing 100% to the table every single time he shows up. And, it can be a blessing and a curse.
Minnesota's a bit down this year. They've typically had a couple NFL guys. I didn't see anybody that jumped out like, ooh, that dude can play. He's just not on a very good team. They've had
running back was out on Saturday, right?
Yeah, their top running back was out, but they've had some receivers that could play in the last couple of years, and they had a quarterback there for a long time. Tanner Morgan, obviously was there for a while, but they look pretty down. Like they're not very good this year, but anyway.
Yeah, I agree, Ron Tom. He's got the opposite of burnt wood in his chest. He's got like whatever that thing is in Iron Man's chest, that flaming
he just sounds like that.
If you
all
turn
the
the lights off in a dark room, PJ Fleck will glow. You will be able to find him.
Dude, what would happen if you got him in a room with that?
With the dude, the sheriff from the Genesee County Sheriff. What the hell's his name? Damn it. Swanson.
Was it Swanson?
Swanson and Fleck. Again, the two might converge and a black hole would just emerge.
They both would just launch into all fours running. Like we've talked about, like they just look like animals.
Too much energy in too close proximity.
Yeah, they just be like screaming at each other right to nose. Dude, those dudes are on another level when it comes to energy and hype.
I wish I had that, man. I wake up in the morning, I'm like dragging, dude. I don't have any of that. These guys are up at 4 a.m. working out. They're just built different.
Dude, Swanson just sleeps standing against the wall. Like
that's why they're where they are, and we are in our basements.
Well, I'm okay with that.
Yeah, it's not bad. There's worse things. All right, I'm going to ask you this question. And I wasn't sure about, I didn't have this question until the news came out today that it was going to be a night game. So I'm going to ask you, we've been looking at Maryland, trying to figure out what they're going to be. They were undefeated. Obviously, we saw them play Ohio State, played Ohio State tough. The Buckeyes pulled away. And then you look at Maryland's schedule and it's like, well, they didn't really play anybody prior to playing Ohio State. Ohio State beats Maryland, but Ohio State really hasn't beat anybody all that great. The Notre Dame win is looking not as impressive at this point. And then we find out that the Michigan State game, even though we know they're trash, even though we know they're not good, it's a primetime game in East Lansing.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to ask you, what presents the biggest challenge, or what's the bigger trap game for Michigan? Is it that game prior to the bye week in primetime in East Lansing, or is it before Ohio State going out to College Park to face Maryland?
It's Maryland.
Maryland?
It's Maryland. Yeah, they've got more athletes. They've got the better quarterback. We've talked about it before. Maryland always seems to have a little something, and then for whatever reason, it just like dies. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's going to die this year. Like they're still not Ohio State. They're not Penn State. They're not on that level, but they seem to be like at least putting together complete games and hanging with the Ohio States of the world for a little while. And they're going to beat up on, I would guess that Talia Tagovailoa and his receivers and some of the speed and talent they've got can beat, 8 or 9 teams in the Big Ten on most nights out. And Michigan State would be one of those 8 or 9 teams. So yeah, Michigan State's just bad, dude. They're bad.
Yeah.
And Michigan's going to want to go in there and pound them. They said, okay, night game, cool. All right, we remember last year, the tunnel. All right, your coach isn't even here anymore. Like, dude, Michigan players are going to be wired to pour so much salt in the wound on that one. I really think it could be like what we just saw against Minnesota. Like, I really do. Like 52-10 type shit.
I mean, my head says it's Maryland, but there's something in my gut that is just uneasy about East Lansing at night. Look, we know that Michigan State is not good. Probably not going to make a bowl game this year again. Their entire season relies on what happens in a couple weeks when Michigan comes to town. And I just think that sometimes when you get a shitty Michigan State team up against a Michigan football team that has championship aspirations, weird things can happen. And so I just feel a little more uneasy about the Michigan State game now that it's in prime time than I do about Maryland. I believe Michigan's going to go. I've sort of evolved on what I think is going to happen with Penn State. I do think Michigan's going to win that game based on what I've seen over the first 6 weeks. So I do think Michigan goes to College Park to get win number 1,000, and I think they get that. I'm a little more nervous about this game in East Lansing because literally the Spartans have nothing to lose. Absolutely nothing to lose. They're going to have a terrible season. If they win 3 games all year and they beat Michigan as one of them, they will go into the offseason happy. They're terrible. They're awful. They don't have the athletes. I get all of that. But they only have to be good for one night.
I could be way off on this. I don't know that much about him, but everything that I have seen from Harlan Barnett, screams stick in the mud. Like I cannot envision him like getting the emotion and the weirdness that you talked about in when Michigan State's not as good and it's a night game. Isn't
D'Antonio still in the fold though? He's still there, right?
He sucks.
I mean,
he sucks, and those players, I don't think they even dude. I just don't see it. Sometimes I do. Sometimes I really think like, God, dude, I hate that I think Michigan State's going to have a real shot in that one when they shouldn't. I don't feel that at all. I just don't. I just think they're not good enough, and Michigan is rolling, and they're not going to let anything like that derail what they're working towards. I just don't.
And I think that's what makes me the most nervous is that it just feels like it's such a guarantee. It feels like it's going to go a certain way, and I'm so convinced by it that it makes me a little uneasy.
Yeah, I just don't have that. I've certainly had that before with the Michigan State matchup. No doubt. I don't have it this year. I just don't.
Maybe it's just all the scars I have inside from previous heartbreak.
Yeah, that's a possibility. All right, Chris, whether it's the defense in the pick sixes or the pressures on the quarterback or the forcing turnovers or the seemingly, I don't know what, just such effective play calling on offense, like we talked about, whether it's the sumo wrestler, the boa constrictor, or whatever, just works. It works. I would assume it comes down to 2 coaches, but I'm going to open it up to the entire staff. There maybe three. If you could lock in any coach on Michigan's team not named Jim Harbaugh for the next 3 years, guaranteed you've got him for 3, who is it?
Ben Herbert.
You did go where I thought. Okay.
Zero question to me, it's Ben Herbert. And I love Jesse Minner. I love Sharon Moore. I love all of those guys. But to me, the heartbeat, the soul of this Michigan football team, the mental makeup, the physical makeup, Ben Herbert deserves a ton of credit for that. And you can bring in other good coordinators from around the country who know how to call plays offensively and defensively. Guys like Ben Herbert are a rare breed. And when you find somebody like that, you do whatever you can to hold on to him. And I think as long as he's in that building, that toughness that Michigan lacked, in the early part of the Harbaugh era that we really wanted to see from him, that they have now in spades, you want to keep that. And as long as he's in the building, you'll have it. So to me, it's hands down Ben Herbert.
I actually love your answer. It's probably the right answer. I'm going to say Minter, and I think we had a question similar to this a couple weeks ago. I think I said Sharon. I was, he's the O-line coach, but he's also the OC. I'm shifting a little bit more towards Minter now that he's got his full complement of guys in the secondary, and he gets Mason Graham back this week, and I think it was like the 11. There's 11 starters, but a bunch of those guys up front rotate a bunch. But he had everybody. Just about every single person at his disposal, and that defense it's so good. I mean, it's just what we talked about. Is Mason Graham a top 3 player in the team? He's so freaking good, and he might not even be top 3 or 4 on his own starting 11. It's crazy. Yeah. And Minter is using all those guys perfectly, and he's just choking the life out of the opponents. And I just think he's so freaking good, man. And you probably had the right answer. And if you would have said Sharon, I probably could have said the same thing. That's how special. Right. I think it probably doesn't go beyond those 3. You've got your 2 coordinators, and you've got whatever Herbert's title is at this point, associate head coach, right, as the strength guy.
Just mental, physical guru. Important. Like the thing about Minter is, I remember when Mike McDonald left and Michigan hired Jesse Minter. Both of us were like, "Who the hell is this guy?" Yeah, like this guy doesn't even have what's his coaching track record? Like, what's going to happen to this defense? Obviously, he's picked the ball up and done. Built on what McDonald had built. And I think Michigan would be able to find a D coordinator that could come in and, who knows what it's going to look like, but I think they could do a serviceable job and you'd still see, a pretty solid a Michigan defense. I just think guys like Ben Herbert, like I said, I think the way they're wired. Did you see that article that Herbert invented a bench press or a leg press machine while he was at Michigan? And he needed it to be taller so it would do something to extend the muscles in the legs. So he went out and he got a patent on it. I mean, this guy, he's just wired. I did not know that.
That's wild.
He's wired differently. I think the things he does to that program and for that program inside of the locker room and inside of Schembechler, I think, we'll never fully realize he's a special guy, man.
He's a special dude. There's no question. Yeah.
I like having him on the sidelines. There's no doubt. All right, Brandon, we've talked about talking about special people. One Mr. JJ McCarthy. We both think he's pretty damn special, but there's also some good quarterbacks around the country. Mm-hmm. Take off your maize and blue goggles. Take out your love for JJ as a person, as a human being.
Yep.
And I'm just going to ask you unbiased. Right now, 6 weeks in, would you trade J.J. McCarthy straight up for any other quarterback in the country?
Oh, I don't like the way you worded that.
Straight up, you can swap them out. Any one of them.
No, I wouldn't because I do think Caleb Williams is a little bit more talented. He's a little bigger. He's about the same caliber athlete when it comes to running the ball. I think he's got just as much arm strength and arm talent. But I think if you take that kid and put him on a team where he's only throwing the ball 16 times, 18 times, 1 touchdown, maybe no touchdowns, he's going to be a diva about it. And there is not one, and that may be inaccurate. I don't know that kid from a hole in the wall. I don't. But the way that JJ
did do the crown celebration after one of his touchdowns.
I don't hate it. JJ's got a little bit of that in him when he needs it.
I mean, JJ, he might do the.
He talked a little bit of shit to a player that gave him some business.
He gave.
He's got a little bit of that.
Wave. Okay, all right.
He's got a little bit of that. I think it comes down. Okay, I would take Caleb Williams over JJ if you also brought Lincoln Riley's offense.
Okay,
but with the offense that Michigan runs, I don't need Caleb Williams. I need a dude like JJ McCarthy. The mental makeup, the leadership, the positive energy, the legitimately loving Blake Corum and Donovan Edwards when they score. I mean, I think if you told JJ, look, JJ, we're going to win every game the rest of the season, but you're not going to throw another touchdown pass, he would sign up for that in a heartbeat. I don't know if anybody else is doing that. I don't know those other guys, but I know JJ, and I know that's how he would be. I'll take JJ. And like I said, I think it's scheme fit, it's team fit, it's what Michigan needs for the culture. It's what Michigan needs for their style of play. When you get into November, you get into December. I'm sticking with 9. And that says a lot. I think that says a lot.
Well, that's what I was, and I agree. And for every reason you said, like if you could bring another offense in, another offensive coordinator, you're running a different style, then maybe you look at it. But even so, I just think the way that he's built and the way that he's wired is perfect for this program, and ultimately what their goal is, which is to win a national championship. And the selflessness and the leadership and the calmness and the maturity that he has. And I just think asking that question, and for us both to say no, when there's literally a quarterback out there who's won the Heisman Trophy and one of the front runners to do it again, how long has it been since we've been able to say that here at Michigan, that the guy that we have now behind center, we legitimately would not trade for any quarterback in the country? It's been a long, long time since you could say that with a straight face and mean it around Ann Arbor. And I just think that really speaks to who he is and what he means for this program. And gotta love number 9, man.
Yeah, dude, he's built for it, man. He's built for it. He gets the best out of his guys. He's selfless, smart. I mean, all the stuff. It's like Jim Harbaugh had like multiple quotes about JJ that just kind of hit home exactly what we're talking about. Called him a dog, said this, said that. His work off the field, his work on the field, his work with his guys, backups, doesn't matter who. You know what? You know one guy JJ loves? He loves Greg Tarr. Loves him. Don't you think? He loves Greg Tarr just as much as he loves Zach Zinner for protecting it. Yeah, that's just the dude that he is, man. So that's a loaded question. Like I said, if you're talking just a straight up body for body swap, no way. I'm sticking with JJ. You build in some of the other intricacies, then maybe there's a talk. But I'll even then. You wonder if you put JJ
put him in Southern California, I think he lights it up. I think he's a special dude.
JJ's throwing 4, 5, 6 touchdowns a game if he's playing for Lincoln Riley. There's no doubt.
No question.
Yeah, that's an interesting debate to have right there. But I'll roll with 9 because he's already here and we don't have to do any hypotheticals. All right. Last but not least for me, Chris, it's I mean, I think I know the answer. The votes don't say so. Yes, Georgia's still on the top because they haven't lost. But is Michigan the best team in the country right now?
I think so.
I do too.
But I also know that it's hard for me to not have that bias because I watch them closer than any other team by far. But I'll go back to what I've said multiple times during the show. The way they play offensively and the way they play defensively, there's no gimmick. They don't rely on big explosive plays. It's a slow burn, chip away at you until there's nothing left type deal on both sides of the ball. And I don't know that there is a team that can go 4 quarters and deal with what Michigan has to offer. And so, yeah, I put Michigan at number 1, but damn it, they're going to have to go out and prove it. They're going to have to go into Happy Valley and win. They're going to have to beat the Buckeyes again for a 3rd straight year. And they're going to have to get into the college football playoff and actually get to the big game this time.
Yeah.
And if they keep playing the way that they've been playing, I have no doubt that it's crazy to me how realistic it is that this team can bring a national championship back to Ann Arbor. It feels like this is the year, but if you're asking me, are they the top team? I would say yes.
Yeah. I mean, it goes back to some of the things we've mentioned throughout the year. And you're 6 games in now, and it's a new season. It's a new day. But I still think there's a ton of value to be said with the 81% returning production, the quarterback returning JJ. We talked about it like, okay, Stetson Bennett's gone. Every other playoff team, their quarterback was gone. Michigan brought theirs back. Jim Harbaugh's a year better. His coordinators are a year better. His players are all, more familiar with the system. I think the transfers that he went out and got have supplemented the team perfectly. Georgia whooped that ass on Saturday. They did. After they fell to earth a little bit this past week, 2 weeks ago, they went out and put a hurting on. Was it Kentucky? Is that who they played? Another ranked team, I think, right? And they killed them. So they're better. I would talk more glowingly about Georgia this week than I did the previous week. But I'm with you. I think Michigan is they're just so complete. They're so complete. So if they don't commit penalties, they don't do anything wrong, man. It's like some of the cleanest football that you can watch, and that goes a long way when you get into those crunch time games that are going to be tighter than Nebraska, Minnesota, ECU, etc. So I'll say yeah to my own question.
It's going to be real interesting to see how those last 3 weeks play out, man.
Yeah,
I have such high expectations. God damn it.
I know.
All right. My final question, Brandon. We saw the news pop up a little bit today. Jim Harbaugh was asked about it at the press conference. We saw some reporting from one Mr. John U. Bacon, the Baconator, saying that his sources were telling him that everybody's on board. President Ono, the regents, everybody's on board with an extension for Jim Harbaugh within the next month that would make him the highest paid coach in the conference. In
Big
the conference, in the Big Ten, not in college football, but within the Big Ten conference. I think for reference, Ryan Day's somewhere around $10.5 million, something like that. So here's my question. If this deal gets done, does this mark the official end of Jim Harbaugh to the NFL, and does it solidify that he's in Ann Arbor essentially for good?
No. I still think like it'll depend on what's built into that contract. What's the buyout look like? Is it monstrous? Is there's other things other than just signing a deal, because we all know that really doesn't mean anything. I mean, you see coaches go back on their word. I don't think it's not going to be a back on his word type of situation, but we've talked about it. I mean, there's going to be a couple other like promising NFL jobs open this year. And Jim Harbaugh is probably the most fed up with the NCAA and the way things are going than he's ever been. And especially if they go on a run and win the whole damn thing, like that kind of puts a pretty little bow on some things for him to maybe try it one more time at the NFL to chase that Super Bowl. That would be the last thing that he doesn't really have. I still think he's going to be at Michigan. I mean, I'm not ready to move off of that yet. Like after it didn't happen with the NFL last year, I was like, all right, I feel less and less like the NFL is a real thing than I probably have since he's been at Michigan. But no, I don't think it's ever going to go away, because teams are going to have openings. Harbaugh's name's going to get thrown into the mix. He showed interest last year. I don't know why he wouldn't again. I mean, he openly said last year, like, I'm going to look at these things. Like, that's part of what being a head coach is. I'm going to check them out and make sure I'm making the best decision. So, no, I don't think it goes completely away, but it certainly shows a little bit more, I don't want to say faith, because I don't think, if Ward Manuel didn't lose faith in him after 2020, he wasn't going to. Like, I guess that's what I'm trying to say. But no, I don't think it's ever going to go away completely.
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing. I know it's not going to go away from the media standpoint. I do think that there is, not always, but there's going to continue for a while to be Jim Harbaugh to the NFL rumors, because he's a hot name. He's a clickable name. Is somebody that everybody knows, and he's winning at a high level at Michigan. And I do think, there's some school of thought that there's really no legitimate interest from the NFL. I'm not so sure about that. I mean, you have a guy who's won at a high level in the NFL. He's done it in college, and there's no reason to believe he couldn't make the transition back to the NFL and do it again. But if he signs a new deal and the contract does make him the highest paid coach in the Big Ten, and we'll see what that means from a national standpoint. He certainly earned every dollar of what he's about to get. I personally think you will see Jim Harbaugh in Ann Arbor. This will be his final coaching stop. Whatever this contract is, if he signs it, whatever the rumors are that come up, whatever you see across ESPN, whoever's reporting what, I think if he signs this new deal, I think it marks he's going to be here for the long haul. He's going to finish his coaching career in Ann Arbor. He's built so much here. This program's finally at a place where I'm sure he's always envisioned it would be. Yeah, they got to get to the national championship. It feels like this is the year. And if Michigan pays him what he deserves, we've talked about this before. He can go to LA and the scenery and weather will be better. He can go to, Chicago and have the nostalgia of, being with the Bears franchise again. Maybe even have the chance to coach JJ McCarthy in the league. But he will never have it as good anywhere else and in any other job as he has it in Ann Arbor with the buy-in and the belief and the way that people feel about him here. And I think he feels that too. I think he feels settled. His family feels settled. I can't envision a scenario where he leaves.
That definitely is.
You like to feel wanted. And he said that, you'd like to know that where you're at, people want you there. And I think this new contract will signify that.
That definitely is the path of least resistance. And it's not an easy path. It's just like, it just makes so much sense. It just makes more sense than any of the other ones. And, but if you can't help but wonder, Michigan goes out, wins the whole thing. 20 players from this roster maybe are gone next year. I mean, that's, you've seen it in the past where people had the perfect opportunity to ride off into the sunset and chose not to, and then they come back and it's not as good as what it was before. And I don't know. We'll see. I do agree with you. I think it makes the most sense for him to just be like, I'm at Michigan. This is where I'm at. He's 60 years old. He could do another, I don't know, 10, 12 years at Michigan, into his 70s. That's about when you see coaches start to kind of fizzle out a little bit. And I don't know. Harbaugh's mental age might be 90 already. I don't know, dude. But in some ways, you wonder if he's got another 10 or 12 in him. But I just don't think it's ever going to go away altogether, and I don't think he's going to ever completely close the door, because for all the being dead inside and the burned wood and just being aloof and strange, the competitive gene is one thing that we know is alive and well in Jim Harbaugh, and he does not have a Super Bowl win, and he lost against his freaking brother. And dude, that's just, for a dude like Harbaugh, that's the burnt end under the rib cage, Chris, that just never goes away.
But never goes away. You know what his brother doesn't have? A national championship.
Well, no, I know. Yeah. So yeah, we'll see. It's the ongoing debate that will never die. I think.
Did we answer the question? I guess we both think whatever happens with this contract, it's still going to happen every offseason. It'll never end.
That's what I think. That's what I think. I don't know. Yeah, neat. Just going to keep doing that every single January.
I'll be in Disney once again, and it'll be like, Harbaugh's on a flight to L.A. Like, what? Why? He just signed a 5-year extension. $12 million a year.
$12 million a year.
He's going to check it out.
Got to check it out, dude. He's got to talk.
Check it out. Checking it out, bro.
Ames Herbert's like, what the hell is that guy on? But no, I mean, it's like I said so many times. There were 8 or 9 jobs open last year, and 6 of them hired somebody. I'm like, I don't even have the love affair with Harbaugh that so many people do, and I'm like, I'd rather have him than that guy.
It felt like last year was the year if it was going to happen.
I agree with that. I do agree with that. Yeah, I do agree with that. I thought after it didn't work out with so many destinations, that made a lot of sense. I'm like, well, that's it. There's not gonna be a better opportunity than what the Colts, the Bears, the Vikings, where he had a relationship with the new GM and stuff like that. So
yeah.
We'll see. Well, there you have it. Hour and 23 minutes. The plan is to be back full strength on Wednesday again tonight, right? Wednesday night,
yes.
Right? That's the plan.
Back Wednesday.
Unless Lionel Messi shows up at your front door.
Then I might be out.
Yeah.
I wouldn't count on.
And then we've got Indiana this week at home. We didn't even really talk about that, but noon, right? That's a noon game.
Big noon kickoff.
Big noon. There you go.
So that's back in the house.
Nice. All right. We'll see you guys on Wednesday as close to 7 p.m. as humanly possible.